2019, what a year. It's been a great year. But in many ways, I think it's been a bit of a staging year for things that are coming next year. So rather than do my customary wrap-up, I thought I might look ahead to 2020 and look at some of the things that are coming. So in the area of technology, in these videos and on the Smarter Cities podcast, we've talked a lot about the benefits of technology, of the rise of AI and the brilliance of innovation in creating a better world. But I think there has also been a discussion around what the social ills or the risk of social ills might be from the rise of technology. We've talked a lot about universal basic income, the idea that in a world where automation and singularity comes, that there may not be enough jobs for people to do, and therefore we need to care for society through some form of government-backed universal basic income. And you're seeing that come through the political discussion. The candidate Andrew Yang in the American presidential election race for the Democratic primary is still in the primary when some established candidates are no longer in the race. That tells you that there is an interest in some of these issues, and I think we're going to have a deeper conversation about it. I think we're also going to have a bit more of a conversation around privacy and the role of technology in interfering in people's lives. We had the Cambridge Analytica discussion over the last couple of years in the interference in elections. We had the Russian meddling case through that sort of whole concern about how elections are being influenced. We've got new devices in people's homes that can monitor what you do, and people are starting to become a little bit concerned about these sorts of things. And I think we'll have a broader conversation about how much technology do we want in our day-to-day lives as people, in our personal lives. And while there are great benefits to them, what are those costs? And how do we manage those costs? How do we regulate those costs? So I think that's going to be a fascinating area, one I'm going to be watching pretty closely. And that's a nice segue into, I guess, the world of democracy and politics. It's been a fascinating year for this. We've just completed a momentous election in the United Kingdom with the re-election of a government that has promised Brexit, and that decision after 3 years has finally been made by the people, and so we're going to see that come through next year. We've had a remarkable series of events in the United States where the President of the United States has been impeached by Congress. This is not something that happens every day. I believe he's only the 4th president ever to be impeached, and that sets a new precedent in how political conversations in the United States are going. And on top of that, we've had this whole rise of China in a trade war scenario, but more importantly also in a cyber war scenario. I think we're seeing more and more conversations around the digital interference in country elections, in countries' economies, in that sort of thing by actors, whether they be a country actor or some form of other type of quasi-government actor. And this is a really interesting space to watch because it will set a whole new precedent of how we as a global community deal with each other in a government setting. And so I think there's going to be a lot more conversation around that. Obviously in Australia, we've had an election here, a re-election of a government that came from a minority government to a majority government. It now has a mandate to set some stability up for Australia after a period of really leadership instability over the last decade. And as we enter a new decade, I think that's going to be a positive thing for our country, and I think it will be a positive thing for the region as a whole to have some stability, in particular as we go into what I think is going to be quite an unstable period in the United States with the 2020 election for a new president or the new presidential election. And I think the last one I really want to talk about is society. There's been a new focus on, I guess, what I would call practical climate change. So obviously at a very high level, we've had the amazing protest movement that's come with Greta Thunberg and children stating their views on how they want their planet to be protected, and there's various views on that. Some believe it's a good thing, others believe children should be at school and should not be protesting. But I think more interesting beyond the media hype is the move in the corporate sector towards a commercial reason for better protecting our environment and coming up with some proper commercial solutions to what is clearly an increasing problem in how we manage our resources and how we manage our environment. And you will see now several companies, including my own Lendlease, looking at going carbon neutral or carbon positive. Some of the energy companies saying they're going to do this without any form of regulation. You are seeing a number of regulators just on that topic now saying they're going to do stress tests on banks for climate risks, looking at companies and insurance companies on how they price risk. That also signals an increasing intervention through the regulatory model into the market of how we manage some of these issues. And I also think it's going to bring about a new focus in R&D on some of the great questions that are facing our world and our country on how we manage our resources and how we get a better environment for our children and our children's children, and most importantly, some of the big issues that are facing people today. So I still talk about the fact that in some parts of the world you can't breathe because of some of the air pollution. That, to me, in today's world is something we should be aiming to solve right now. And I think with the level of focus we're seeing in the business sectors around the world, particularly in developed countries, we're going to get there faster than we have in the last few years. So I think it's going to be a really fascinating 2020. I'm really looking forward to it. It's been a personally great year for me. We welcomed a new member of our family who's growing up fast, so and to add to our other children. So I think it's been a really exciting year for us personally, and I'm looking forward to 2020. So thank you in particular to everyone who's been giving me a lot of feedback on these videos and on the Smarter Cities podcast. It's been such a privilege to do it. We've got a whole lineup of new guests coming on, and we'll have them on in 2020. But we've got one more bonus episode with Kieran Hennessy that's coming up, wrapping up 2019. But for the moment, I want to wish you and your families a very happy Christmas, a very safe Christmas, and I look forward to speaking to you more in 2020 and what I think is going to be a really great year. Thank you.